Best Interests by James M. Freeman. Fade in. Exterior, Hong Kong Detention Center. Entrance, day. Superimpose, 1994. Double perimeter fences topped with barbed wire circle endless rows of Quonset huts and tents. 8-foot metal sheets on the inner fence block the view outside. Khaki-clad armed guards perched on high towers scan the enclosure, packed with detainees and rags. The sign at the massive steel front gate, in English, Chinese, and Vietnamese, reads, Royal Hong Kong Police, Vietnamese Boat People Detention Center. It is an offense to 1. Enter a detention camp without the permission of the commandant, 2. Bring into or carry out any contraband article, 3. Aid the escape of any detainee. Interior, Quonset hut, day. Dozens of 3-by-5-foot cubicles, 3 tiers high, each divided only by a cloth, stretch the length of the structure. Hieu, 15, stunted and wiry, sits cross-legged in a cubicle with 5 other boys, wolfing down minuscule portions of insect-infested rice. A larger boy next to him snatches Hieu's food. Hieu smashes him with the empty plate. As the boy falls flat, Hieu kicks him. 2 guards rush in and beat Hieu savagely with nightsticks. They drag him out of the Quonset hut. Exterior, space in front of the commandant's office, day. A low gray stone building stands near the camp's entrance. The sign on the door of the building reads, Commandant. The large open space in front of the commandant's office quickly fills with hundreds of children. Uniformed guards wielding nightsticks prod them to sit in rows. Richard Taylor, 50, steps out of the office. His commandant's badge hangs precisely over the shirt pocket of his starched uniform. Minh, 55, wearing torn trousers and a faded shirt, accompanies Taylor. The left side of Minh's face displays deep burn scars stretching past a lifeless white eye. The 2 guards in charge of Hieu hustle him, handcuffed, in front of the children and then force him to his knees. The guards bind his arms with ropes. The children lower their heads. At Taylor's signal, the 2 guards grab Hieu, immobilizing him, while a third douses him with a pail of water, then pulls out a long straight razor.
This is what happens when you disobey.
Minh translates in Vietnamese. Hieu shouts at Minh in Vietnamese.
Why do you help him? You're a prisoner like us.
Hieu struggles as the 3rd guard shaves Hieu's head. The reddened skin of Hieu's bald head gleams in the sunlight. The 3rd guard marches over to the commandant's office. He returns with a paint can and brush. He smears a large black circle on the top of Hieu's skull. The 2 guards holding Hieu lift him to his feet. They jerk him past the sitting children down the road. Interior, Detention Center Jail, day. The windowless, confined space contains a rusted metal door with thick bars. A body covered with bruises and welts lies on the cement floor. The door opens and the 2 guards shove Hieu into the cell. He cringes against a wall. The guards kick the motionless body. No response. They drag the corpse out feet first. Interior, Detention Center Jail, night. A sliver of light passes into the cell. Hieu cowers in a corner. A guard opens the door carrying a dented metal plate with half a handful of rice and a tin cup of water. He slams them on the floor. Hieu crawls over to the cup, grips it with both hands, and gulps the water. He slithers over to the plate. Worms wriggle through the rice. He knocks the plate away. The guard cuffs Hieu on the side of the head, marches out, and slams the door, leaving the room in semi-darkness. Interior, Detention Center Jail, day. Hieu lies on the cement floor. The door opens. A man, 30, steps inside. Around his neck dangles a badge, UNHCR Field Officer. Anne Carson, 55, accompanies him. Her badge reads, Visitor. Minh follows her. Hieu sits up and Minh speaks to him in Vietnamese.
These people want to talk with you about your life in the camp.
Who's he?
United Nations, UNHCR.
I won't speak to him. Who's she?
Your screening attorney.
Carson hands Hieu a business card written in English and Vietnamese. Hieu turns over the card.
Screening attorney. What's that?
She presents your case for asylum. Trust her.
Where was she when they interviewed me?
Mrs. Attorney, Hieu asks where you are when special committee interview him.
Minh translates Carson's response to Hieu.
They never told me. I just found out. The United Nations requires that you have representation.
Minh turns towards Hieu.
A photo of you being shaved was smuggled out of the camp and published in the South China Morning Post.
It caused a huge outcry.
That was 2 months ago.
It took that long to get permission to see you. I'm here to check on your treatment.
Hieu looks at Carson and throws up his hands.
See for yourself.
Don't push her away. She can help you.
Hieu turns his back on Carson.
She'll just get me in more trouble.
Interior, Quonset hut, day. Sandals line the dirt floor below the suffocating small three-tiered cubicles. Small children run back and forth along the corridor, scattering the sandals. An adult detainee leans out of a cubicle.
Stop that.
Interior, Quonset hut, inside Hieu's cubicle, day. 3 shirts hang from a wire strung across the platform. Plastic water bottles stand next to 4 rolled-up thin bedrolls at one edge of the platform. Hieu and 3 other boys sit in a circle holding cards. Hieu shuffles and flicks 1 card each at the boys. They look at their cards, slam them down, and toss a coin towards Hieu. Interior, Quonset hut, outside Hieu's cubicle, day. Minh tears aside the cloth at the opening of the cubicle. Behind him stand Carson and the UNHCR field officer. The boys squirrel away the cards and coins.
Mrs. Attorney wants to see you.
Hieu squirms across the cubicle and hops down to the corridor. Loud siren wail. Carson starts towards the door.
Weapons search. You can't leave.
Interior, Quonset hut, day. Guards burst into the Quonset hut. They lock the door.
Everyone on the floor.
Detainees scramble out of the cubicles and stand in the corridor. The guards fling all of the personal items off the platforms onto the floor, scattering them helter-skelter. Small children hide behind adults or stand alone, crying. The guards pat down every detainee, including children. They search Minh and Carson, but not the UNHCR field officer. A guard follows a woman, who twists away. Another guard holds up a homemade dagger with a rusty metal blade lashed to a piece of wood.
Everyone out.
He unlocks the door and the other guards push the detainees out into the bright sunlight. Exterior, road outside Quonset hut, day. Carson, Minh, and the UNHCR field officer stumble outside. A guard steps in front of them.
You stay here.
Where are they going?
Relocated.
What about their possession?
Confiscated.
We don't want them to have feeling of permanence. So we move them without warning to another location.
The guards march the detainees away. Small children stumble as they run to catch up. Exterior, residence tent, day. Rows of enormous sagging canvas tents sway in the breeze. Behind them stands a watchtower manned by an armed guard. A tent flap opens, and Minh emerges with Hieu, bare-chested. Carson and the UNHCR field officer stand at the entrance. Hieu points to the tent.
My new home. Like it?
Where's your shirt?
Lost everything in the move.
Hieu agrees to talk with you. For a shirt.
Exterior, Camp Road, day. Beyond the tents lie rows of Quonset huts. Hieu, Carson, Minh, and the field officer walk past the Quonset huts. Hieu wears a blue short-sleeved shirt.
No trees, no greenery, only concrete and steel. What an environment for children.
Detainees stare at them. One of the detainees points at Carson and the UNHCR field officer.
Don't talk to them. They're UNHCR. They just want to send you back.
The detainees shout.
UNHCR,
get out, get out.
Hieu's group passes rows of spigots where crowds of detainees bathe, wash clothes, and collect water in plastic pails. Beyond the spigots stand 10 flimsy metal structures housing latrines, with long lines of people waiting to use them. Hieu's group stops in front of a large Connex box fitted with a door. The sign over the door reads, UNHCR Field Office. Interior, UNHCR Field Office, day. Papers lie scattered on the metal desk near the center of the small front room. Metal folding chairs rest against one wall. A tattered yellowed poster on the wall shows a small fishing boat nearly sinking, teeming with people, and the caption, "If they survive, they are refugees, UNHCR." Hieu, Carson, Minh, and the UNHCR field officer enter the room, pull out the chairs, and sit in a circle. Carson pulls out a small notebook.
Why did you leave Vietnam?
My father worked for the Americans, so our family was denied food ration cards. We were starving.
Don't listen to that liar.
Communists wouldn't let me attend school.
Hieu pulls 3 folded, worn papers out of his pocket. He hands them to Carson.
Death certificates. My father and mother.
Fake. His parents sent him out as an anchor to bring out his family, just like the other kids.
Hieu holds up another paper.
Release form. 1 year in prison for trying to escape Vietnam. I was 10.
UNHCR checks all claims. These are forged papers.
Carson turns towards the UNHCR field officer.
How many of these unaccompanied children qualify as refugees?
They all make up stories to get asylum.
Carson points to the wall poster of the boat people.
What about that poster? Aren't they all refugees?
That was before 1989. Countries don't want them anymore.
Carson looks at Hieu's papers.
Smudged. Water damage.
See, madam. Official Vietnamese seals.
She writes in her notebook.
Little nephew, these aren't genuine. What really happened, I won't tell them.
Why should I trust you?
Minh points to his disfigured face.
I earned this fighting the communists.
Forgive me, uncle.
Shouts outside, thuds against the Connex box, clang of hard objects against the metal wall. Minh opens the door. Exterior, UNHCR field office, day. Teenage youth scuffle on the road, beating and kicking one another, throwing stones. Minh stands at the open door. Carson peers out the doorway, and Minh pushes her back inside.
Sorry, madam. Very dangerous.
Guards rush up and beat the youths with bamboo nightsticks. Minh slams the door. Interior, UNHCR field office, day. Carson and Minh sit down. Minh points outside.
North and South Vietnamese, they hate each other.
Living in these conditions, no wonder.
Hurry up. Visiting hours end at dusk.
Carson picks up her notebook.
When my mother died, my father remarried. My stepmother was mean to me.
Wanted you out of the house, right?
So father sent me away. He said, don't come back. Go to America and send money to your younger siblings.
What are you two saying?
If he tell truth, you let him stay?
Not if he's an economic migrant.
Then why he tell you anything?
I don't make the rules.
Hieu, how did you get to this camp?
Escaped with my older sister. 5th attempt. Pirates attacked our boat.
Hieu looks straight ahead, eyes blank, emotionless.
Took her. Sank our boat. Everyone else died.
Carson writes additional notes.
I floated on wreckage for days. Many boats passed me. A fisherman picked me up.
Why did you keep trying to escape?
After my father died in a re-education camp, my mother was blown up by a landmine. That really happened to my mother. And my angel. And my escape.
Who took care of you?
Hieu holds out cupped hands.
He died.
How about here?
Hieu points to bruises on his arms, legs, and face. He pulls up his blue shirt, exposing his protruding ribs.
They put me on half rations to punish me.
I personally monitor this camp. It provides enough nutritious food.
Look at him.
Calm down.
Calm down. Last month, a girl in this camp said to me, "It's against my religion to commit suicide, so I pray to God that I die in my sleep." I told her things would get better, and she killed herself the following day. Burned herself.
And you can't save them all.
I'm not going to lose this one.
You can't take this home with you.
Exterior, gate at section fence, day. The camp road leads to a high metal fence with a massive gate. 5 yards beyond it stands a second gate and fence. A guard stands in the space between the fences. Another guard holding a rifle sits in a tower. The UNHCR field officer leads Carson, Minh, and Hieu to the first gate. The guard waves through Carson and the UNHCR field officer, but stops Hieu and Minh.
Bear with me.
Hieu shows the guard a card marked School Pass. The guard lets them through both gates. Exterior, school, day. A Quonset hut with brightly painted pictures of birds and trees stands apart from the living quarters. Outside the painted hut, children run back and forth in a small fenced space, kicking a soccer ball. Looming near them stand a barbed wire barricade and a guard tower. A guard sits on a folding chair at the entrance to the school. Hieu, Minh, Carson, and the UNHCR field officer approach the school.
Thank God for a little color.
The soccer ball bounces out of the schoolyard. A boy runs outside to fetch it. The guard at the school entrance leaps up and runs after him.
Get back!
The child scurries back to the yard. The guard picks up the ball and tosses it to the children.
Hieu, you're in what grade?
I've been here 2 years. 2 months of school.
He's lazy.
Bigger boys beat up the smaller ones on the way to school, so we stay in our cubicles.
Interior, residence tent, Hieu's space, day. A bed sheet, a couple of shirts, and a small towel hang from a wire. 4 plastic water bottles lie at one corner of the 3 by 5 foot space. A small light on a cord hangs over the platform. Carson and the UNHCR field officer sit on the platform. Minh and Hieu stand in the aisle.
Watch out for the airplanes and the submarines.
Mosquitoes and bedbugs.
Carson jumps up and brushes herself off. The UNHCR field officer pulls out a notebook. He shows it to Carson.
Each unaccompanied child is placed with a family in the camp.
She runs her finger down the page.
You're with the family of Trend and Bin. How do you get along? Is this their platform?
They left a year ago. I couldn't go with them because I'm not related.
Hieu grips the edge of the platform.
I don't want another family. They'll just leave me here behind.
I'm appalled at the lack of protection for these kids.
That's the responsibility of the host country.
Nonsense. They follow your advice.
Look, Anne, rock the boat, and the Hong Kong government will bar you from the camp.
You expect me to watch you destroy the lives of these children?
I see what goes on here. But if I protest, the Hong Kong government will expel me.
You hang onto a job rather than defend these kids.
Interior, Commandant's office, day. The sign on the metal desk reads, Commandant Richard Taylor. Behind the desk hangs a blackboard covered with an announcement in chalk. Voluntary repatriation statistics. A line shows months of the year with numbers under each month. The last 3 months show 0. Commandant Taylor stands by the blackboard peering at the numbers. 2 guards push Hieu into the room. Carson, Minh, and the UNHCR field officer follow. Taylor unfolds a paper.
Liv Van Hugh's request for asylum is denied. He has shown no evidence of a well-founded fear of persecution.
What did he say?
I'm sorry, little nephew. You've been screened out.
Hieu clenches his fists.
Therefore, it is in the best interest of this child that he be repatriated to Vietnam.
They tell you to go back.
Minh puts his arms around Hieu, who pushes him away. Taylor hands the paper to Anne Carson. She studies it.
The date shown here is March. It's only February.
She hands it back to Taylor. Without a glance, he tosses it to the UNHCR field officer.
The die is cast.
The Special Committee for Unaccompanied Minors rejected him before they interviewed him.
I've got children. I know their best interests. Children should be returned to their own culture.
What if his culture is begging on the streets?
Here or Vietnam, he causes trouble.
The 2 guards grab Hieu and shove him out the door. Exterior, detention center, main road, day. Hundreds of boys and girls wearing white headbands march towards the main gate. Hieu walks in front. A few feet from the gate, the children stop and squat on the road. They unfurl a large cloth sign. A Vietnamese teenager asylum seeker was murdered in this camp. Where is United Nations protection? They sit unmoving as guards quickly surround them. The children produce a second cloth sign, which reads, Better to die than return to communist Vietnam. Anne Carson, the UNHCR field officer, and a press photographer, 35, enter the front gate. A guard blocks their way. Carson shakes a paper at him, and the guard lets them in. They walk towards the children.
Why does the Commandant hate the children?
He blames them for the death of his son. Happened when his son visited the camp. Someone threw a brick.
Taylor and Minh emerge from the Commandant's office and run over to the protesters. Taylor motions to a girl to stand up. She does not budge.
All of you, stand up and leave, now.
No one moves.
Half food rations for the entire camp.
At Taylor's signal, a guard whacks the girl with a nightstick. Other guards hit the children, who sit with locked arms. Carson runs over to the children.
This isn't human. They're children, not criminals.
You're the cause of this riot. They're protesting because you're visiting today.
We're here by order of the Hong Kong government.
Commandant, how many children in this detention center? 5,000, half of the camp. 1,000 are unaccompanied, no relatives.
Hieu waves at the photographer.
Let the world see how we are treated.
Minh translates Hugh's remarks.
Vietnam won't take them back unless they volunteer. This gives them false hopes of being resettled. We persuade them to repatriate by making them as uncomfortable as possible.
Taylor runs over to one of the cloth signs and yanks it out of the hands of the children.
Reducing rations, stopping their school, moving them without warning from one hut to another.
You violate your own United Nations guidelines on the care and protection of children.
I have no choice.
Yes, you do. You could tell their story to the world.
Suddenly, the children stand as one. They chant in English as the photographer snaps their photo.
Freedom! Freedom!
They sit back down. Carson strides over to an enormous truck that has brought in food. She sniffs at fish and recoils. She picks up a brown speckled cauliflower and a black banana. She holds them up and the photographer shoots pictures. Taylor rushes over to the photographer and lunges at the camera. The photographer steps to one side.
No more photos. Move away.
The children chant.
Justice! Justice! Looks like you've lost control. I'll show you control.
Guards haul the children to their feet and push them down the road. Taylor calls over a guard and points at Carson and the photographer.
Escort these meddlers out of here.
Exterior, Quonset hut, day. The blinding glare of the sun reflects off the rounded metal walls. The children stumble towards the Quonset hut, beaten by guards. Commandant Taylor trails behind. At the entrance, Taylor flings open the door. The guards kick the children inside and bolt the door. In the distance, the photographer stops and bends down.
Gotta tie my shoelace.
He points his camera at the Quonset hut and takes 2 quick photos. Exterior, Quonset hut, night. A Vietnamese detainee lights a flaming torch and pushes it through a tiny window opening.
Dead dog Southerners!
Commandant Taylor watches as smoke billows out the window, followed by flames. Taylor hands the detainee several bills. Screams from inside the hut, frantic banging on the metal door. Arms push and claw through the window.
Enough! Get them out!
A guard smashes off the lock. The children pile out, coughing, collapsing. Hieu stumbles out, dragging 2 bodies. Taylor grabs his arm. Other guards enter and haul out 10 bodies.
See what you caused. Your own people hate you.
Murderer, you will never break us!
Taylor motions to a guard. The guard pulls out a knife and slices up and down Hieu's arms. The blood flows freely. The guard produces a bottle marked vinegar and splashes the liquid on Hieu's arms. Hieu screams and falls writhing on the ground.
Bury him with the other bodies.
While the guards drag away the corpses, Hieu slinks around the corner of the Quonset hut and hides under a tarpaulin tossed on a trash pile. Exterior, detention center, main road, night. A searchlight momentarily illuminates the road and moves on. In the dark, Hieu, his hands protected with cloth, quickly scales the inner fence. At the outer fence, he slips, catches himself, and hauls himself over. The searchlight returns, and Hieu hugs the ground. When the light passes, Hieu jumps up and stumbles off. Exterior, hill, day. Thick brush blankets the hill above the detention camp. Hieu trudges up the hill. He stops next to a tree, pulls out Anne Carson's card, and stares at it. Then he pushes his way through the brush and disappears over the summit. Exterior, detention center, entrance, day. Carson and a policeman stride over to the commandant's office. The policeman pounds on the door. Taylor opens it and the policeman pulls out a paper.
Richard Taylor, you are relieved of command by order of the Royal Hong Kong Government.
The policeman handcuffs Taylor and pushes him out the gate. Interior, detention center, hospital, day. In a canvas tent, Hieu, in bandages, lies on a bed. Anne, Carson, and Minh enter the tent. Minh translates.
Commandant Taylor will never bother you again. The UNHCR field officer has been reassigned.
Hieu sits up.
Can I stay in Hong Kong?
She hands him a newspaper photo of the protesters.
The Hong Kong government will review your appeal. Your story has spread throughout the world.
He looks at the front page photo in the South China Morning Post.
We've set up a group home for teenagers. While you remain in Hong Kong, you will never be alone.
Hieu jumps up and bows.
I'll visit you each week.
I'll be a good student, then I can go to America.
Interior, Commandant's office, day. The sign on the metal desk reads, Commandant Peter Hieu. The blackboard behind the desk shows numbers under the title, Repatriation Statistics. January and February show 0. March shows 657. Peter Hieu, 40, stands by the blackboard. He erases the number for the month of March and adds a new one, 857. Anne Carson bursts into the room.
Where's Li Van Hieu?
Hieu opens a ledger and turns the pages.
No one by that name in this camp?
He hands the ledger to Carson.
He was here last week.
Hieu points to the blackboard.
Must have been repatriated. New policy.
Against his will.
Best interests.
Fade to black.